Hello world, what separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.
The whole story is Carlos never beat me in any kind of sports in high school.
Welcome to the Orange is the New Black podcast. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, joined by my co-host, Zim. Zim, say what's up.
Hello, world. How are you doing this evening? We are back. It is the dynamic duo here on Orange is the New Black. We are excited. We got some big, meaningful football games coming up in the season. But before we even get into that, we got to talk about this Ravens game coming up. Ace, how are you feeling about it? First of all, before you do that, we're really close to Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody out there in Houday Nation. And I think the best Christmas present will be a Bengals dub against the Baltimore Ravens. But hey, if you're watching this, appreciate the support for you guys supporting me and Zim. We both had some orders come through for people that were getting some Christmas gifts that happen to be our merch. So be sure, if you don't catch that, we still will have that going throughout the season, especially if we're gearing up for the playoff run. So be sure to visit zimhouday.com. Check out the Burrow Babies hoodies, a whole lot of orange hoodies that he's got over there. You can check out my website, newstripecity.com. For the Trace Migos hoodies, we got those going. So appreciate that support there. But yeah, let's get into this game, man. Baltimore has come back around at the office. Isn't that that's what Jermaine Pratt calls it, right? The office. They come into the office. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for. I feel like ever since early in the season where we caught them off guard in Baltimore. Joe Burrow ends up setting a record in Baltimore as an away quarterback, right? And now we get them at home. I felt like from the end of that game, a lot of people on the Baltimore side felt like it was fluky, right? Like they felt like because we had so many explosive plays that wouldn't happen in this game. Obviously, they've got all of these injuries and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, right now, I feel like none of that is relevant, right? It's like either win or go home. Like if the Bengals were in the same situation, which they have their own injuries as well, you know, a lot of people are going to say, get this dub and try to get into the playoffs, try to get the division. This is a huge game because other teams in the division really have, for the most part, finished a lot of the divisional games, right? We're the only team that still has the Ravens, and we also have the Browns. And right now, the Bengals are in the driver's seat for this playoff run with the 4th seed. And in order to keep that locked in, they have to continue to win. And this is the perfect game to do that because not only are they going to get a divisional win, they're also going to get an AFC win. And so this game has a lot of stakes on it. So I don't think you can downplay it either way. Now, Lamar Jackson, as we're recording this on Thursday, December 23rd, has still yet to practice. So we'll have to see tomorrow what changes. But that makes it seem to me that there is a legit chance that Huntley could be the guy that the Bengals see in this game. Now, Huntley, we've talked about this, and you've tweeted about this. We talked about how we would actually rather play Lamar Jackson than Huntley, and that's not a knock against Lamar Jackson, but it's obvious that Lamar Jackson is hurt. It's obvious that this offense has played better under Huntley because he is 100% healthy and has added some dynamics to that offense, right? And this is a guy that not many teams have that much film on. Maybe like 2.5 games of film is what they have on Huntley. The good thing, though, is that they do have kind of similar traits, right, as far as being a mobile quarterback. So if you're simulating for Lamar Jackson, it's probably pretty similar to Huntley, which I think bodes well for the defense. But in this game, I think what it really comes down to is exploiting the injuries that they have in the secondary, right? No Marlon Humphrey in this game. Obviously, last game, Jamar Chase lost his mind with Marlon Humphrey in the game. I think that you have to get things going through the air, and this is a game that the Migos can really eat on this battered secondary. I remember the Bengals were in the same position last year, right? Like we had a lot of injuries in our secondary, specifically at the corner position, and some teams just really lined us up, spread us out, and really just took advantage of the lack of depth that we had there. I think the Bengals should do the same thing. Like there's no reason in this game to not put your foot on the neck of an opponent in a game where you need to come out here and get a victory. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So I think that you should do that because Baltimore does not have a good pass defense. It's one of the worst in the league. They do give up plays in the deep passing game, which, as we know with Joe Burrow, one of the best, if not the best, deep passer in the league this season. I believe with 12 deep touchdowns, according to PFF, and that's most in the league, most that we've had in some years. I think that they get that going in this game. Now, the run defense for Baltimore is actually pretty good, right? So I still think that you will try to get Mixon involved in this game, but I think that you exploit this Baltimore team in the passing game. You get the score up on them, and then you continue to do what you did in the Broncos game on defense with containing that offense that Baltimore has. They're normally known as a running team. Outside of the quarterback position, they haven't really done anything on the ground. Like when you talk about Freeman, like he's probably their best running back, but they're not anybody that's really going to scare you and can really take over a game.
Let me ask you this, though. With all that said, you talked about the injuries. You talked about the different ways that the Bengals could probably take them out, right? Tell me a scenario you could see the Baltimore Ravens shocking the Bengals.
I think in a situation where they shock the Bengals, it would have to be Huntley. It would have to be Huntley throwing this defense off balance, like similar to something that we saw in the Jets game. Two different styles, right? But like we saw the Jets, like the prep or the lack of preparation in the game plan not working with them, and them not, reacting in game to switching it, kind of put them in uncomfortable situations. If the Bengals had something like that, like with the cover zero, I think we talked off air and you said that, with the cover zero blitz, that hasn't really affected Huntley the same way that it's affected Lamar. If they try to do that and they're burned by it and Huntley makes some plays that they're not expecting, that's the only scenario that I can see where they do that. And it would also have to be a combination of the Bengals once again returning to turning the ball over in this game. That's the only way I feel like the Ravens shocked the Bengals in this one.
Part of me, like I showed, I was telling you this off air or whatever. So the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, if you guys follow my page on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, or it's been going around like wildfire, Wink Nightingale. I was about to call him Marty McFly. Hey, Wink Nightingale. He was saying that, and I don't want to misquote the quote, but it was saying that they're not going to double team Jamar Chase. He's not Devontae Adams, and Joe Burrow's not Aaron Rodgers. He also said that we're not ready to give Joe Burrow a gold jacket yet. Some of that is, somewhat like true in the aspect of Joe Burrow hasn't done enough to be on Aaron Rodgers' level yet. But if we're talking about talent and processing information and dicing up a defense, like Joe Burrow's probably the number one quarterback for that in the entire National Football League, in my opinion. His strengths are his processing abilities, whereas Lamar Jackson's processing abilities are his weakness. A lot of people criticize, I think, Lamar Jackson for his accuracy. I don't feel like Lamar Jackson, even in college, he threw at like 76% completion rate. It's not his accuracy. It's when he sees something that he doesn't know, he gets off balance with the different mechanics of throwing a football. So then the ball then sometimes is off or he'll have an off game just like anybody else. With that said, I think in a way, Wink Nightingale or Martindale was Wink Nightingale. I think he was just saying that, because obviously he couldn't go a whole entire game without giving them coverage, like help with the safety. The Ravens are just, ravaged with injury. So I see no scenario where you don't cloud coverage his way. The Bengals, when they played them in week 7, like you were just saying, they showed them these zero blitz looks and what I call also read blitzes and key blitzes. When you have read blitz looks, there's always a zero blitz look when you look on Madden or whatever, and you just send that all out blitz, or I don't know if they call it zero blitz on Madden. I haven't played Madden in like 5 years. But when you're just giving him that look, it doesn't allow him to process information like that. So I was telling different people, like, I kind of rather play Lamar because he's got the hurt ankle. Trey Hendrickson is playing on fire. So, like, if you think you're going to run away from that, cool. Like, you could run. I know you're super athletic. You about to be running all day because Trey Hendrickson is about to hunt you down like a wild dog. So I said it from that aspect, but I didn't want it to get misconstrued. Lamar Jackson is a far better quarterback than Huntley, in my eyes, at least. And I think a lot of people, and I've said this to you many times too, that he gets a bad rap for not being a good quarterback. I think he is. He just struggles with different things. And right now, at this current moment in the league, he's struggling with this look of a read blitz. The read blitz is going to look at his mechanics. How does he drop back? Does he start his progression from his right to his left? That lets the linebacker know if I'm coming or not. But Lamar Jackson doesn't know that, and we have to communicate on defense, and we started that. After that, he played the Browns. They copied that. He threw 4 picks. He also then played the Miami Dolphins where they blew the doors off of him. He ain't been right since we played him. So anybody that's saying, like, I'm crazy, there have been people that say, like, why would you want to play Lamar? And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is not a better quarterback than Huntley, but the things in that look that we were doing, Huntley diagnoses and he processes that way faster. And even in the Packers game, they act like they were going to blitz him. They act like they were going to do different things. He carved it up so crazy, and he goes straight to Andrews. And what did we do 2 weeks ago against Kittle? We had no answer for Kittle. So right. Andrews, I imagine, could do the same exact thing. And I mean, come on, that's Lamar Jackson's favorite target. But right. When I first saw that quote, I just thought it was crazy because I'm like, that's amazing bulletin board material. And you know who I sent it to immediately. Thanks. Text message, like, boom, here we go. And so the guys are ready. They like it, but at the end of the day, I did think about it for a couple of hours, and I just can't see a scenario where they would even be that stupid to think.
Well, the one thing
they're going to blitz like that.
They love playing, the Ravens defense loves playing man-to-man, and generally a big part of that is you have Marlon Humphrey, right? But now you don't have Marlon Humphrey against those guys. So with not leaving any help over the top, I don't know what the recipe or the thought process really is there. But maybe it's just something to make the Bengals kind of think that. Maybe it's a Jedi mind trick to make them think, okay, we're going to get single coverage all game, and then they come out and it's help over the top, and that contributes to it. But I think the weird part is when he's talking about Joe Burrow, and like, by no means are we trying to crown him over Aaron Rodgers, but to sit and kind of give a light of fire essentially under Joe was probably not the smartest thing to do, especially when you're going on the road against a Bengals team at home with so much on the line, and you may not have Lamar Jackson. So that is interesting from that standpoint, and just given their resume as far as, the holes in the secondary that they've had, the mishaps, the miscommunications, that is kind of somewhat shocking to me that he said that. Got a super chat here from Rowdy every lap for $5. Appreciate that, Rowdy. He says if they take the leash off of Joey B, he can go for well over 400 yards. I think that this is a game that you're going to see at least a minimum of 300 yards. It's just my personal take. I think that you see at least 300 yards from Burrow in this game because it just really lines up to kind of be that game for them because, like I said, Baltimore's pass defense, not good. The Bengals passing offense in terms of the weapons, very good. And we've always said that. Me and Zim said, whenever you first look at this Bengals team, no disrespect to Joe Mixon and the running offense or anything, people are going to look at the Migos, right? They're going to look at, can we match up with them? Is that something that we have there? And in Baltimore, and even in the 49ers game, when I did a crossover with one of their fans, they were worried about how they can stop those guys because they don't have one good corner that can stop any of those guys, let alone 3. And I think that this is a similar situation in Baltimore where you have 3 guys that are going to be matchup nightmares. So I could potentially see that. That doesn't mean that Joe Mixon won't get his fair share. Maybe even CJ Uzomah, right? They're not good against the tight end either. So maybe this is a game where he gets involved. I'd like to see what the Bengals do here, whether Zach is going to keep going kind of with this kind of strong run game in back-to-back games, or if he's going to let it fling. I kind of feel like he might let it fling. That's not from any inside information or anything. I haven't talked to anybody. That's just the thought in the sense that I get from this game, especially from just watching a lot of both of these teams throughout the season.
I mean, part of me, I was telling somebody this, or I might have tweeted this earlier today too. With me knowing what I know, like, I never felt this confident about our run defense, like, ever. Like, now, there are different ways that you could scramble, throw to, like, as we saw with, like, Mike White. We're going to live with Mike White in our nightmares for the rest of our lives. But as I saw in that game, you could stretch the perimeters. You got pretty much 2 brand new starting linebackers, like, playing out of position on our team. I could see a world where a short passing game or something like that could absolutely dice the Bengals up. But, like, running in between the tackles, DJ Reader, I love Geno Atkins to death, but I don't ever remember me feeling so good about the run defense that I just felt like there's no team like that could run on it. Like you need like Derrick Henry. Like you need the elite if you want to run on this defense. So with me knowing that, okay, so now I know that I gotta make Huntley or Lamar Jackson pass. That's exactly what I think I want to do, right? Coming into the football game. I just don't see a world where that works for them to put up 20 plus points. And with that said, all I have to do is play mistake-free football. So the person that's saying, even you're saying this, I guess now too, is like pretty much like let Joe Cook light him up. I feel like that's the one way we could blow the doors off of them and beat them by 40 points. But say Joe goes back to throw for a pass and it's something, turnovers or something like that, and it starts going in their favor. They get a nice little lead or something like that. To me, that's the only way that I think we could lose. Right. If you just play the field position with them and make mistake-free football, I just don't see a world where, much like the Broncos game, there's no world where I could see them winning the game in that manner. So part of me says let them cook, because Joe comes to the press conference. He says, man, I feel way better in the pocket mobility-wise than I have felt all year. The other part is Joe is saying that he think he's playing his best ball. He also just got snubbed for the Pro Bowl, right?
Let's talk about the Pro Bowl.
So he got snubbed for the Pro Bowl, and then Lamar Jackson, here he is, a guy that to me, probably shouldn't have been a Pro Bowler, and I think Joe should get that spot. And I think Joe's not the person that's ever going to come out and say, I should be in the Pro Bowl, but he is a monster. And people think I'm crazy, and they think I go online and I say all this crazy stuff. I swear to you, in everything I know, the people that I know connected with this team or the players that I know talk just like me. And Joe Burrow is thinking just like me. And I'm thinking I want to cook them whether I tell you or I don't. Sometimes I humble myself. Sometimes people humble me. But I don't think it's going to be these Ravens on Sunday. So I think Joe's ready to go and, atone for that snub.
Right. I got another super chat here again from Roddy for $5. Appreciate that. Roddy says, plus Mixon is a little banged up. A light workload this week could be beneficial going forward. I agree with that, keeping him healthy. But let's talk about the Pro Bowl. You touched on it briefly. The Bengals were able to send Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, and Trey Hendrickson to the Pro Bowl. What does that mean to you? And I think, what were some of the snubs from the Bengals side of things outside of just Joe Burrow? You mentioned that one, but is there anyone else that you felt like was snubbed from this Pro Bowl process?
For me, the two bigger ones that I think were like just straight up snubs, but it's a flaw in the system, is DJ Reader. With DJ Reader, I don't know, I know even content creators like me and you, it's sometimes hard because you want a lot of people to kind of view your content, or you want people to see different things, or why in the hell would I be making it, right? And it's not as sexy to show the trenches sometimes. Like sometimes I've been making a point this year, and I think I've fallen in love with the trenches, especially on the defensive side of the football, more than ever. And what DJ Reader does for this defense, I just don't remember a defender, like anybody for the Bengals, as long as I've been a fan, been able to do it like this. Like Petco was like half of this, and just having what he does up front, there's been some good interior defensive line, but what he does
like this one
to take on double teams, everything. Like, why do you think Jermaine Pratt comes in and gets 15 tackles? He comes through clean. Like, none of the offensive linemen ever get to the second level with DJ Reader. If there's a double team or anything, like, he's pretty much taking two. It puts the Bengals at a advantage on every snap, because for every two players, he's got one. He's double filling those gaps, and he's taking your center and he's taking your guard every single game. And so when you have that, now you got a free body that can flow on a line, or you got a free linebacker that doesn't have to shed blocks to go make the tackles. A lot of Bengals fans have been upset in the past to say, man, I hate these linebackers, they suck. It's not so much as the skill level isn't there, but a lot of players at the linebacker position can get to the ball really well. They're really fast. Or we see guys like Devin Bush or whatever, like they have all these different attributes, but they don't shed blocks really well. So then the consumer or the viewer at home is looking at it and saying, well, our linebackers suck. Like, no, he just doesn't shed blocks well, but if you get him in open space, he can make the tackles. DJ Reader does that for us every day, but it's very hard to do that in a system that's flawed, that's based on sacks and pressures. But I will say this: if fullback gets a spot in the Pro Bowl, nose tackle should have its own spot because he's outside of maybe Vita Vea. He's the very best nose tackle in all of football.
Facts.
Period. So
No,
I
I'm
would
with you.
say that and Awuzie. Those are my two snubs. And
Yeah, I have to
that's
agree
a
with
tough
you on
argument.
that
And
because
Burrow,
those guys that you mentioned, I also forgot to mention the alternates. So you got Joe Burrow and Clark Harris as the second alternates. You have Sam Hubbard as an alternate, as well as Larry Ogunjobi. So they're like fourth alternates. Then you got Mike Hilton as a fifth alternate. And I think, like you said, for someone like DJ Reader to not even be an alternate, like for Cheeto to not even be an alternate,
it's a
is
flawed
just
system. It's
definitely a flawed system. Another man that I feel like should be on this list that was snubbed, and I think my man Diddy talked about him on it as well, is Spain. Quentin Spain, I think, definitely was snubbed in this one. And it was a weird one, right? Because when they were showing the votes earlier, they were putting people were voting for identity, like, and he hadn't played most of the season. And it's like, really, those votes should probably go to Quentin Spain. I really think Quentin Spain definitely had a Pro Bowl caliber season this year. Given the circumstances and everything, I think he's just been playing some of the best ball of his career, but unfortunately, it's going unnoticed by some of the people out there.
And when the voting was done, that's when he was playing his best ball too.
Facts.
Like, like Joe Burrow, part of me feels like, okay, around that time he was throwing a lot of interceptions. In the main voting time in the Pro Bowl, he was like at the top. Now Tom Brady now has 12 interceptions and stuff. So Joe Burrow still got 14. It's not like a big eyesore anymore. But around the time that they were like voting, Spain was balling. I mean, he's still playing pretty good. I thought the San Francisco game was his worst game like all season, but then he kind of regrouped this past week.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I feel like for the most part, if you just put his resume for the season up against a lot of the other guys that may have gone to the Pro Bowl over him, I'm pretty sure that it's either in his favor or slightly close. I mean, I think Quentin Spain has definitely been, if not, the best, the second best lineman on this. And
there's a lot of teams. Like I went through a lot of different teams, and I was just looking at snubs all over the place. That's why it's not hard. It's really hard for me to get in like an uproar for like all of them. Except,
and like, how is Spain not an alternate? Like, so that's the thing too. Like, sometimes
Awuzie is not an alternate either.
He's not an alternate at all. So
because they're always just looking at
Von Bell. I mean, Von Bell's not an alternate. Like, Von Bell quietly is having a solid year as well, honestly. So
and this is the crazy thing. The scheme has changed. Bates has not had a bad year. I think we look at like what has Bates done in the past. He always has 2 interceptions or whatever, right? Or you look at the end of that San Francisco one where he drops the interception. His run support, his PFF grade, all these different things that factor in. He's had some really, really low weeks, but if you cut on the tape on a lot of these games, they're not bad games and they're above average. But comparing them to the rest of the safeties in the league, there's only about 2 to 4 teams that Jesse Bates wouldn't be their starting safety on. So like, even Jesse Bates, like I think people saying he's having a down year, they don't play single high anymore. So all these different plays where he would just run from end to end and make a play on the football, you're not going to see that anymore. Like they do that with Von Bell. They alternate the two. So it's just and that's where I think the Von Bell part comes in. Is like Von Bell has shown me in coverage he could do a lot more than what I ever thought he could. Because even last year, people forget before he had the hit on Juju, the fan base was really tough on Von Bell for that Cleveland game with the kid. What's the white tight end guy?
Austin Hooper?
Nah, the other one, the young one, like Brian or something like that.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. His name escapes me.
Somebody's going to say Harrison Bryant.
Yeah.
Absolutely scorched them and won the game. We could have got them off the field. It was like, I think it was the first game it had to be the first game. But we had him and we had a chance to get him off the field and everything like that. Von Bell got hit with 3 straight passes. Everybody didn't even like Von Bell. Then he goes over to the Juju game and knocks the stuffing out of him on Christmas. And then everybody started to swing back. Then fast forward to this year. I mean, he's balling out, like playing free safety, strong safety, run support. I mean, he's a force, bro. Like, and it's seeing him up front. His stature, him, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon, like lower body strength, are probably like some of the most bulkier lower body strength athletes I think I've ever remember in like Bengals history or just period. Like they're not small. They're big guys.
No, I feel you. I feel you. I think he's also had some strides that he's made in coverage this year as well. It's something that I also noticed from Vaughn. Got another super chat here from Aquila the Great for $5. Appreciate that, man. He says, I think we need to re-sign almost every 1-year contract. They've all taken the expectations and smashed them. I agree with that one. RBI Sports, appreciate the super chat. Not sure what the comment was, so if you want, you can feel free to throw something in the chat. We'll try to get that one in here.
Yeah,
Psycho $9.99, $2 says, love you guys. We love you too, bro. Aquila the Great, $5 says the safety position performs well when the rest of the defense performs or fails to perform. Defense sucked last year, so Bates had a million chances to perform. That's true. Psycho $9.99 says he loves us again. Appreciate that, Psycho. One thing that I wanted to ask you,
I got a question for you too
before we get out of here, and then you can ask me yours, is what do the Migos have to do to all get to 1,000 yards in these next 3 games? I feel like they can do it. What can they do? And then I think if
it's really about Boyd. It's really Boyd.
Yes.
Because Boyd has to, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Is he like 300 yards off or 280 something?
Yeah, he's very close. He's
got to get like 90 something a game.
Right.
I could be wrong. I might be off a couple yards. I think he's got to get like 280. T. Higgins only has to get like 165 or 185. So I think that's going to be done. Boyd has to average 100 yards like every single game for the last 3. I think he has a better chance of just going off. And I'm gonna tell you this: say he gets to like 8 something by the time we get to the Browns game. Say it's like 850 or something, and they aren't really playing. Like, say we already know we're in the playoffs and we maybe got the division on wrap. I think I think they're gonna have that conversation behind closed doors, and Joe Burrow's gonna say, "Yeah, bro, I'm about to get you 1,000." Like, I really think that's
here. I got the exact numbers here, courtesy of my man Blake Jewell. Our guy Blake Jewell. He's got T. Higgins needs 165 yards. Tyler Boyd needs 293.
293.
I think he can get that.
You can, but it's one of those things where on average, you know, he's good for 60, 70 yards in my mind, right?
Right.
It's going to take, like, I think it's going to be that last Browns game where he might be like 150 yards off or something. And then they just have to come into that game and say, look, like, bro, we about to get you this 1,000. Because T should be getting probably 100 yards on Sunday. Jamar Chase, it is a little bit of a boom or bust with him. It might be 40 yards or it might be 180.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like, he's already hit his mark. But T, I think that's a done deal. Like, that's done. It's just, I think when they get to that Browns game, whatever, they got to get him. He probably might be like 140 off, and they got to give him like 140 in that one game, and they're going to know. And trust me, they know about 3 wide receivers going for 1,000. They know.
Facts. No, I'm with you. So I did the math in the 3 games. Tyler Boyd would have to get like at least 98 yards in all 3 games receiving to get there. So we'll have to see how that happens. The other thing I want to ask you before you give me your question is, dang, I just forgot it that fast. So go ahead. You can pitch me the one.
You pulled a Zim.
Yeah, I did. I did.
I wanted to ask you this. Somebody told me, and a lot of people are very, I'm not going to say guilty of this, but a lot of people pose this to me. There's always talking about what's going to happen in the all season. And man, we're like 1 year away and stuff. One of the things that I'm really, really on right now is not about how good the Bengals are. Like, it's about how not good the other teams are.
Right.
When you look at the landscape of AFC right now, in this year, I'm not even looking forward to all that. Like, because next year, Pittsburgh might regroup. Ravens get healthy. We could get better, but they're probably going to get better too, is what I'm always thinking. If you're looking at just this year, because I'm lasered in, focused in, who do you think like poses the biggest threats to the Bengals? And if you had to list your top 3 teams in the AFC, who would those teams be?
Those teams for me, without me just off the cuff, I would say number 1 is Kansas City. I would say, and that's obviously because of Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid, right? They got the players, they've got the coaches. That's a matchup where I'm worried if we get off to a slow start, that's a team that could take advantage of us, right? Second, I would probably put the Patriots there strictly because of Bill Belichick, right? I don't want to have to go to Gillette Stadium and take on Bill Belichick as one of the best coaches that we've ever seen before, right? Really because of him, not the team, not the players per se. I'm not really afraid of anybody on the New England Patriot roster. It's really all about the coach when it comes to that one. Third, I would probably, let me think this one through. I think I would probably actually go with the Chargers. I probably would go with the Chargers here over the Bills simply because I feel like Herbert is a better quarterback than Josh Allen. I know some people might think that that's a hot take. I've never really been, if you follow me, I've never been really super high on Josh Allen. I'm not a hater, but it's no surprise to me that he kind of has this up and down thing. I think Herbert is more consistent. And then I also think that Chargers team has a bit more talent when it comes to Derwin James, a Bosa. So I slightly give them the edge over Buffalo. I think that would be my three teams in the AFC.
Buffalo, when Ladarius, what's his name? White, Ladarius White, or the corner, Tre'Davious White. When he went out, it changed how I kind of viewed him a little bit because they are a pretty good defense when he's out there and he can just be on the island. And one thing about Buffalo too is that I know that they do have somewhat success running the football, but they don't want to run the football.
Right.
And in the playoffs last year, that's exactly what happened to them. They got all the way to their game, and they were forced to just threw, and they threw their way into an L because they get so pass happy. Out of all the teams that are left, I think the Colts is the team for me because Jonathan Taylor is a different type of running back that we hadn't seen.
Facts.
And if Carson Wentz plays above like what he's supposed to play,
see, like that's where it is for me.
But as far as like a full team, to me, it's the Colts. Like I don't care. I know they didn't look that great last week or whatever. Like to me, that's like the best. Like the Patriots, same thing. They just want to run. The Chargers, I feel like when we came back on them and it was 24-22 and we were driving before Joe Mixon fumbled, psychologically, I think that did a lot. And I keep on saying I want to see them. Herbert is super, super skilled. And I watched him on a comeback drive. He wasn't able to win that game that they had the other night. I think it was like Thursday Night Football or something where they had the Chiefs and then Kelce comes back with his name. He never completely froze, but when it was time to do what Joe does, he just threw a jump ball up. They ran for one of the other first downs, like in the key moments, and that right there was all I needed to see. I'm like, if I can get his back on the rope, he can't take me out.
But let me ask you this. I'm not a Carson Wentz believer. I'm not a hater.
I'm not either.
Carson Wentz would definitely give you like he can have. I can see
if Jimmy D is giving you work, Carson Wentz gonna give you work.
I can see them getting some picks though from Carson Wentz because he'll give you some chances where he might have an interception here or there. Like if you put pressure on him, and I just see him against this Bengals defensive line potentially doing that. That's the only I'm with you on Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor, a lot of people talk about him being MVP caliber. I do think he's in that class because of what he can do. But I think if the Bengals are able to somewhat shut that run down for a brief moment, not saying that they just stifle him the whole game, and it's in a situation where Carson Wentz has the pass, I could see Carson Wentz potentially turning the ball over for them. But I'm with you. I do feel like they are a good team. They do have a good defense. You talk about Darius Leonard. We're talking about one of the best linebackers. In my opinion, he is the best linebacker. In the game.
I think
so I understand where you're coming from on that for sure. So it's interchangeable, honestly, for me at that third spot. I could see why somebody would put the Colts there as well.
The one thing I think that people don't give Lou enough credit for or whatever is that It's the exact opposite of our offense. Sometimes we come into these weeks and we be like, why the hell did y'all go after them corners? Like when like the Bears game, they were like a whole bunch of injuries, or it's a bunch of different games throughout the seasons where we're like, we got to go right at those corners, and they don't. Right. I feel like Lou, not on like on some fake Belichick stuff, he actually does take away like your stress a lot. And the reason why I keep on saying, well, the Bills don't want to run. He's gonna make them run.
Right.
Like he's gonna make you run. And then the same thing with the Patriots. Like you want Mac to just hand the ball off? Cool, you're gonna go 3 and out because Stevenson and the other kid or whatever, like they're not running in between Reader and them. Yeah. So I'm gonna make Mac Jones win. And this is the best part. And I'm gonna wrap up my whole thought. The Chiefs, sure, right? Super scary. But the best thing about them is that we're about to play them next week. So no matter what happens in that game, we're going to know our matchups. We're going to know what we need to do better, or we need to know, what I'm saying? We're going to know what we did to win, or we're going to know, so that's the beauty of what we got coming up. But it was just a little bit of a look ahead. Of
I'm excited about that game.
If Titans get Chris Henry, RIP, if they get Derrick Henry back, then it changes who they are. But we beat their butt last year, so
with Derrick Henry. So I want the Titans. Like
we're a better tackling team.
Didn't say the Titans on purpose, and it's no disrespect. It's just I feel like if I get Ryan Tannehill versus Joe Burrow in the game, and seeing what they did with Derrick Henry last year, and the run defense is much improved. Right. I think that helps us out, and especially with them having injuries with AJ Brown and Julio, you just don't know who's going to be there for them. So I actually like that. I know defensively they're a lot better this year, but I just think about that game that Joe Burrow had, which we kind of felt like the light was coming on. I feel like he's going to have a lot of things that he could take advantage of, and that against that defense. So I'm actually welcoming that. So I did recall.
I'm welcoming that Charger game. I want that daggone Charger game. That's who I want.
Charger game,
them Charger fans are fun online, bro. I know Charger fans. I love those. I love them. The Ravens fans are probably the most delusional fans I think I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, the Ravens fans are kind of tripping. And I did say this. I talked to you offline, but now I've had the chance to go through the scenarios. It doesn't look like there's any scenario where we would play the Ravens in the first round. Right. That's the team that I actually wanted the most, for sure. I got a super chat here.
I think they might lose. I'm gonna tell you this: Bengals win 10 games, you're in the playoffs too. I just want to say that.
Facts, easily. Like if we beat the Ravens, it's pretty much pretty much almost in there.
If you watch the Chiefs this whole year, they've been super streaky. Their offense wasn't good. They have been getting hot lately, right? It's a part of me that just says that they hadn't seen a defense like ours in a little bit. They did a lot of that stuff on the Chargers defense that isn't as good as our defense.
That's the confidence booster going into the playoffs.
Our defense is never going to sell on us, bro. Like having a Chiefs score 24 points on you in the playoffs or something like that doesn't mean that you don't have an elite defense. Like you did what you were supposed to do. On the other side of it, I know Joey about to give me 28 in the playoffs. So that's how I feel. I don't feel like I could shut these teams down. But anybody that's talking about next season or like getting Osai back and all this stuff, I'm with you. I agree. But I honestly think that in our history or our fandom, of being a Bengals fan right now, I just don't remember the landscape of football being this wide open. There is no dominant team. And the best team that I think maybe like the Packers, right? We took them to overtime in the game that we should have won.
Right. Facts.
So come on, why are we talking about next year?
I'm not worried about playing the Chiefs. It's just if you ask me like the best AFC teams, I actually love that the Chiefs game will be a good benchmark for us going into it, because I feel like if we beat them, we're gonna feel like we can go into the playoffs and win it all. Honestly,
for sure,
I think that's gonna give us confidence. Rowdy,
what was the question?
Rowdy had the $5 super chat. Then I'm gonna get into his. He said T could have made it if he hadn't missed 2 of those games because of that hit against the Bears. I agree. This is the thing that I wanted to touch on. I think it was either today. I believe it was today. Jamar Chase responded to his Pro Bowl nod, and I wanted to say this because we had his father on, and a lot of his quotes that he had were taken out of context. Right? They talked to him about. I think it was Diana from ESPN. She talked about, he's more so focused on his self-accomplishments. Today, they asked him about the Pro Bowl, and this is what he said. I was worried more about the playoffs than the Pro Bowl. I was just trying to get the Bengals to the playoffs. That was the biggest goal I wanted to happen. The Pro Bowl was never a thought in my head. So I wanted us to be able to put that out there because we've seen like quotes from Jamar Chase get taken out of context. You can't take that one out of context. That man said that the playoffs was always his goal. And in order to do that, he was a big part of that. And I just wanted to get your reaction, to that quote from Jamar Chase.
I mean, for me, I think I believe him. He has his own goals. And I think he thinks that if he just hits on those goals, like I know one of his goals is 14 touchdowns. Another goal he told me he's got some goals. And so I just think that if he hit that, I think he thinks that he's just going to win football games, and it's really that simple. I just don't think he thinks like that. I think his agent probably needs to tell him he's about to get a pay bonus, so he better be thinking about that from a Pro Bowl perspective. And somebody hit me earlier today. I'm glad you did ask me about him a little bit though in this aspect. Somebody did ask me today. It was like, Zen, why aren't you taking a victory lap on this? I was like, bro, when we started up this Civil War stuff, it was never about like, let me be right or whatever. It was about like, how can we win? And it does. And the jury's always going to be out for this whole offensive line versus wide receiver and how you build a team. And to me, there's no right or wrong way. It's all about execution, and you need health. Like health is wealth. So you see a full season from Jamar Chase, super healthy. And I just think like it is very refreshing though to know that I didn't John Ross this one though, right?
No,
to know like you actually, I think I was just desperate for John Ross. Like we just needed speed.
Nah, I don't think it was anything wrong.
That situation, that coach hated him. It was just bad.
I don't think it was anything wrong with you going as hard as you did for Jamar Chase. I mean, it's Jamar Chase. I mean, it's a slam dunk.
Right.
I remember like, and you might have been included in this as well. I remember right after we drafted Joe Burrow, a lot of people saying, what if we get Chase next year? I remember it being like, as soon as we drafted him, that was already starting. So I think you definitely deserve your flowers and taking the lap because honestly, it worked. Like anybody that would say that it hasn't worked, you just are bitter, honestly, at this point. Like it's always been about, when me and you started this, it's always been about what's best for the team, not who was right and who was wrong on anything. And that's what we did this for, right? That's why we wanted the tank and stuff like that, because we wanted what was best for the team. And obviously Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are what's best for the team. And obviously this coaching staff, you have to give them credit. You have to get the front office credit for them bringing in guys, the Quentin Spain move, like all of these things that they did in the offseason. Riley Reef, don't forget about him either. Like bringing all of these guys in, Frank Pollock, like Marion Hobby, like there's so many things that happened
crazy
that they just really hit on this season. So give
I feel like
them the credit, give the Bengals the credit. Like really, you just got to give everybody the credit for what they did here in Cincinnati.
Man, I feel like they hit too. Like I think initially, it's so crazy how life goes sometimes. Like where they draft these 3 linebackers, even last year, because it's like, oh, we need better linebacker play. And I kind of touched on that earlier in the show, whatever. But it's not that the linebackers weren't good enough. It was just that they needed the guys up front to work for them so that the best of their abilities could come out. And, a lot of different things. Even Drew Sample to this day has made key blocks in some games this year. And it's a lot of different things that have happened that have showed us that just because it isn't the person that we particularly want sometimes, if you have a good functioning team and good cohesion and you execute plays, like those players aren't to get to the National Football League in itself. You can't be a bum to get there. I know plenty of people around my way that never made it that I thought was like the greatest football players of all time. Right. So, it's just one of those things I just think is amazing though, like that we got to this point. Like what a season. Like hasn't this been the most fun season? We're playing for a big game. I'm starting so crazy. You see how I got the shirt out with the whole Joe Burrow going against Lamar, the running back, and like how about you talk about calling your shot, having some fun, and people actually responding and buying it because like we're starting to instill confidence back in the people, I think. Because last year you sell something like that, I wouldn't have sold one shirt, right? To beat all my ops, like whether we beat Lamar Jackson or whatever this weekend or not, which I'm very confident I think we will. Like it's just really, really crazy that we got all the way here based off of what we thought in the off season, and the fans were divided. And here we are having a fun season, super competitive with a big game. It has a 49% probability change on your enhancement or your takeaway from the playoffs if you win or lose this game. So you talk about a meaningful football game. Here we are. If you didn't like pressure, don't come to Sunday, and I mean, don't come watch football on Sunday, because this is going to be pressure.
And if you're in Cincinnati, definitely be sure to hit up the jungle. The Bengals did not tell us to do that, but we need, as much of that home field advantage as we can. So if y'all can pack the stadium, go ahead and do that, because this is a major game. But a friend of the show, Luke Noel, just sent in a $5 super chat and said Clark Harris's mustache should have gotten in the Pro Bowl. I completely agree with you, bro. The one last thing, I know we're running low on them. The one last thing, we got to touch on it, right? Joe Burrow, they've been talking about this all the time. He was asked about COVID, and he says that we've been lucky as far as injuries and COVID. We're doing a great job with our COVID protocols. Fortunately, there's not a ton to do in Cincinnati, so nobody's going out to clubs and bars getting COVID every weekend. Me personally, like me and you both aren't in Cincinnati, right? We've been to a lot of major cities and stuff like that. I think from where Joe was coming from, it wasn't out of some kind of ill intent or him taking a shot at Cincinnati or anything like that. I just think when you've been to cities like Miami, LA, New York, and things of that nature, like they just tend to be on a different level than most cities just in general, right? Like there's always something going on. I just did a post the other day, like there's like 20,000 things going on in Miami, like just today, right? And so I think that's what he was really coming from that sense. I don't think he was trying to say like there's nothing to do in Cincinnati. And I felt like a lot of people took that as a shot. I'm from Cincinnati, but like there's a lot of cities that aren't on the level of a New York or Miami or LA. Obviously, you live in DC. What can you speak towards the comments as far as what Joe said about the city?
Joe is usually a little bit more calculated when he says stuff like that, but I would venture to say this, and I don't know if you saw this, Carlos Dunlap actually took up for him in the ESPN comments and stuff, and he was just saying, shoot, I mean, come on, get a guy a break. He's only been there like 2 years in COVID, so like he doesn't really know anything. So I thought that was really, really good for Carlos to stand up for him. But a lot of people hit me up sometimes and they'll say, hey, man, what do I do when I go to Cincy? And I only know a couple different things, and that's just based off of what people have shown me. Like, versus, like when you were growing up in Cincy to now that you're an adult, like those places are totally different. So whatever lounge is popping right now or whatever bar is popping right now is vastly different than when you were there too.
Right.
So
facts. I think it's actually more stuff to do now than when I was, and it wasn't because there was a lack of some things. Like it around the time when I was there in the early 2000s, like there were some dangerous spots. So like, yeah, you could go, but there was a chance that you might get shot at or something like that.
Right.
So, there weren't really as many professional places where you could go out and be safe as there are now, from what I've heard from talking to people back home. But it's not something where he's just kind of trying to rip on the city.
I got a great idea. While we're talking about this right now, you know what we're gonna do for Joe Burrow? I need y'all in the comments right now to name your favorite spot that you like to go to in Cincinnati. So everybody else that's reading this, maybe they could write it down. They could go to it.
Somebody said the Ritz. I done been to the Ritz when it was open. I went to the Ritz when it was open back in the day.
I done heard about that. So there's some spots that I know I go to. I want y'all to like name all the spots. Like I know y'all gonna troll and say stupid stuff too, but give some people some good spots to go. Matter of fact, give Joe Burrow some good spots to go, because
we don't want Joe in the club now. We don't want after talking to Jeff Blake, as a quarterback, he's not supposed to be in the club anyway, right?
Right. This enough. Yeah, and when we was in the club, we definitely ain't see no Joe. We saw a lot of other people. We ain't see no Joe.
We ain't see Joe.
But I will say this though, bro, like anywhere in the United States right now with all these COVID outbreaks and all this craziness going on in the world, I don't think Joe meant it like that in that sense. It's like, for me, it's like, what are you really going to do? Like, where are you really going to have like the time of your life right now in the middle of a COVID outbreak escalating in the United States? Like, I think part of that, he didn't say that, but I just think some of the back context of like that exists. Like, where are you really going to go is what I was thinking.
Facts.
I will say this though. I know one place to go. It's Midwest Best Barbecue. My God, this is another thing too. If y'all want to support people or you want to support like businesses and stuff, why not support a business that you know 100% is like the biggest Bengals fan I ever know? Tim and his wife work and they love the Bengals. Their kids like the Bengals. Everything about them screams the Bengals. Good food, great everything, whatever. Like it's just amazing. Like I mean, right in Loveland, they got their own creamery in there as well too, so you can get ice cream as well.
Too.
So like it's a good spot, like in you know, a nice little quick spot, but it's got really really great food. And for me, I think it's really important that we support our own.
Nah, that's facts, and it's dope that Greg Luther went out there, pulled up on them when they got a brisket sandwich and some of those wings. So y'all definitely be sure to do the same. Dope Bengals fans, they got a whole bunch of stuff going on there. I can't wait to get back over there because they showed us major love when we came through. So definitely holler at Midwest Best Barbecue and the Natty. But everyone have a Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year. Zim, you got one more thing to say. Go ahead.
Make sure when this thing is over, like and subscribe to me and Ace's YouTube, New Stripe City, Zim Hude. Really quick. On my Twitter, on my Instagram, especially my Twitter, I'm doing a contest. It's called the Orange Suite Giveaway. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it allows anyone that you know that is doing an act of kindness or someone that's helped your family or the community. You could submit pictures, video to my email at zimhude@gmail.com or on the Twitter. I have it pinned on my comment, or you'll see the post on my Instagram. Please submit that, and you get two free tickets to the Bengals versus the Chiefs on January 2nd to a suite. There ain't no regular seat. You want to go see the game in style in the winter? Why not sit in the suite at Paul Brown Stadium? I'm doing this. You don't have to follow anybody. You don't have to enter no raffle. Just submit people that have helped you and it's going to help your Christmas, or people that you want to enhance their Christmas. Make sure you submit this, and I think that's going to go a long way in the city or wherever you are. And please make sure that the person can go to the game before you submit it, even if it's yourself. That's all I want to say.
Facts. So shout out to my man Daniel for $2. He says Joey B is dropping 400 on this Mickey Mouse secondary, and Bryson Holloway for the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate that. This podcast is a godsend to real Bengals fans. I thank y'all every week. Thank you, sir, for supporting us. And don't forget to support the rest of the Cincy Jungle team. You got the Orange and Black Insider. You got Matt Minnish, Coach Speak as well. So definitely be sure to check those out. And Choctaw, I think he renamed it though.
He renamed it.
He did a rebranding. So definitely be sure to catch up with all of the shows. But Zim, we gotta end this with a yes.
Sirski. Hello world. What separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.